Hello again, class. I'm going to talk about chapter 17, and let's see what we got. Okay, so I want to double check that. Double check that number. Hold on a second. I'm sorry, chapter 18. All right, turns to the wrong page here. Okay, let's flip over to chapter 18, and let's pick it up. All right, that's okay. I know you don't have the book there, but this would be the first, starting on the bottom of your page there. It's 299. Okay, the questions. Question number 1, the end of the chapter. The stage of plumbing installation that extends the water and sewer lines into the building is known as, and this is on page 289, the first page, the first rough stage. Okay, and this is the answer they're looking for. Okay, this one almost sounds familiar, like we might have covered it, but if we did, we did. One thing I like to tell you, though, I don't know this term, first rough stage. This is something I must use out in, let me get this screen better. Okay, out in Illinois, where this book is from. Apparently their code is pretty good, but some of their terms are different. We just have, either we have an underground rough and then we have maybe a final rough. Usually we just have one rough. But if you have underground work, you're going to have two roughs. They call it first and second stage, which is not a bad idea. And so to complete that whole answer, question number 1, the stage of plumbing installation that extends the water and sewer lines into the building is known as the first rough stage. Okay? Now, I think all of you, most of you have done this with the underground rough, and I don't think it's changed since I started in the trade. What we used to do is run, used to be cast iron at one time, and then, of course, we switched over to plastic. But whatever material you're using, and depending on the type of building, of course, if it's commercial, usually it's cast iron. What we do is run our pipes. We put a plug with a spigot on it at the building drain as it left the building. Cap all our openings, have everything pop up through the concrete where the concrete was going to be, and have select one pipe, usually like a vent on a lav or something, 2-inch, 1.5 inches, and maybe use reinforcing rod to hold it from falling over. 10-foot piece of pipe up in the air, and you fill it up from the building drain, right, until the water obviously comes over the top, and then clear the dirt away from each joint. For those of you who haven't done it, some inspectors are picky on that, and they should be. If there's going to be a leak, it's very, very unusual to see a leak in the middle of a pipe. I personally never seen it. I've seen holes through malleable gas pipe fittings, not many, just a couple. And, over the years, you deal with hundreds and hundreds of those things, probably thousands. And it's rare, but that happens. But the pipe itself, I've heard it can happen. And if you're doing work, especially a lot of work under a slab, and you have, let's say, a few hundred feet of tubing, it's always a good idea to test it once you put it in, right, before it gets covered up, even though maybe nobody's going to really be looking for it. Like, say, if it was for heat, not a bad idea, but I've never seen a defective piece of pipe. Okay, so they call that the answer was the first rough. Okay, the second rough would obviously be the next stage. Let's see what the question is. Yeah, it is. So question number 2. Installation of all piping within the walls, the floors, and the ceilings of the finished building is called the second rough. Okay, that one makes sense. So what they're saying is everything, once you have that rough, the first rough, or the underground rough, everything else has to be tested. So you're probably going to have, you will have pressure on that same underground rough again when you're testing out everything above that point, right? So you're going to connect it all up. You're probably going to plug it off again at the as the building drain leaves the building, or if by the time you do the finish rough, it's already tied into the building sewer because they ran the line in. Maybe you'll have to block off the building, the drain as the pipe leaves the building, right? That 4-inch floor drain. You could put a plug in there with a spigot on it and fill it up from there, right? And this time the inspector has the right to see the water come out the highest vent on the place. So if you got several vents sticking out the roof, you got to cap everything below the highest one. Okay? Otherwise, the water's not going to get up to the top vent. The inspector can ask you to do that. Now, some guys, I haven't seen it done, but I've heard about it. They get cute. They put a plug inside the highest vent and they fill it with water. Somehow they scam the inspector. But really, you're not scamming anybody. In the end, if there's a problem, they're calling you, not the inspector. So they call it the second rough. We would call it just the rough, the finish rough. Maybe you got a name for it. I don't remember it myself. There's an underground rough and the, then the usual rough when everything is complete. Okay, of course, that was page, for those of you who want to see it, that's also on page 299, right near the first rough. Okay, the third question is, describe each of the two methods used for attaching the corporation stop to the water main. Okay, this is on page 301. So this would be the third page of the handouts. And what I did is I just underlined them in the book here. I didn't even bother trying to write them out for the question portion because it was just, there wasn't enough room on that question page. Okay, so the two different methods. Now, this is not, understand, this is not plumbing. This is way out at the street. This is how they tap into the city main or the town main if you have town water. Right? There's two ways to do it. And I personally, I have not seen it done. I've seen the pipe when it was completed on rare occasions, but it's not our business. We have nothing to do with this. All right, we don't start until the meter in the house. That's where the plumbing starts. Okay, that water service coming in through the foundation, not even plumbing. So this is at the other end. So this is far from our jurisdiction. However, the book is asking about it, and I guess could be a code question. Two different methods used to attach the corporation stop. Just the name for the shutoff. The sidewall is drilled and tapped if the main is large enough. It's threaded into the tapped hole. Okay, now I think you can understand that this would have to be a pretty large pipe, which means the wall thickness of the pipe is pretty beefy. If this was a relatively small pipe that wasn't that thick, there wouldn't be the strength there to put to thread a pipe in, to thread a stop in. So this would have to be something, I'm just kind of guessing here, at least a 1/4 inch thick before they could tap it. Again, it's up to the city. They have special machines now that do this so they don't get flooded out. You don't have to shut the main off. So there's two ways. One is they drill and tap the main itself. Or, now this one obviously is if the pipe isn't thick enough, they put a saddle on it. And this is the one, just like the saddle valve, that's illegal for plumbing for an ice maker, right? You know, that one that none of you guys have ever seen or used, I'm sure, right? Okay. This would be a bigger version of the saddle valve. And they would put that around the pipe. And then they would pierce the water service, very much like the ice maker. Again, you can kind of figure it out for yourself. All right, so that was question number 3. And question number 4 is the drainage piping between the building foundation and the the sewer main or septic tank. All right, now from the foundation to the sewer main, a septic tank is known as A. Now they're looking for a name that we don't use. Okay, we'll play along with them. They call it the house sewer. Okay. Now they're talking about the foundation wall to the septic or the sewer main. I agree with that. Now, what do we call that? Okay, the house sewer. Okay, it goes from here to the city sewer. So the pipe comes underneath here and it goes into here. Actually, it's probably more like this. Again, how they tie it at the other end, I don't know. I've never seen this, but it's on the street. Okay, one was the water service coming in, the corporation cock, so don't get that mixed up. This is the drain going out. So this thing here is the house sewer. So that would be from here, right, to here. Okay, we don't use that. We use the building sewer. So let's clear this up. The building sewer goes from here, same place. It ends at the same place, but it starts 10 feet outside the inside wall. This is a guaranteed test question. I would bet money that you will see this again for one of your license exams. Okay, so please understand that. 10 feet out from the inside face. How thick is the wall? I don't know, 8, 10 inches. I've heard that you can have, I've never seen it, but you can have up to 12 inches here. And if it's a 12-inch wall, I've also heard you don't need the footing. Never seen a house without a footing. If you go out to Nantucket, for example, Nantucket is a big sandbar. There's no rocks out there. Rich people have the trucks, the 18-wheelers come in with filled with stone. You can imagine what that costs to have transported out there, and they build stone walls and do things with it. But it's all sand out there. And the foundation is, I believe it's a cement footing, but the wall here is not poured cement. So those fancy houses you see are cement block. It's a lot cheaper. Just came to me now. This is at least 35 years ago. Cement was $100 a yard, which was more than double what they were getting by the yard on the mainland. So the cement was at least twice the money for the foundation. And maybe because it's a sandy soil, they don't need anything stronger than cement block. Okay, just one thing I've seen. And also, there's some places in the country where they have brick walls. But I've seen brick. You ever work in the old 3-family houses in the city? Those old houses where they have the brick columns holding up like the lolly columns, for example. They make them out of brick, like two this way, back and forth. They start to crumble when they get old. In fact, I had a house from 1860, and the brick, must have been the quality of the brick, was starting to crumble, right? And the mortar was like, you could poke it you could scratch it with your fingernail. I don't know what they were using back then. But anyway, we only see cement wall foundations, or if you go back before about 1935, 1940, you see stone foundations. Now, those of you who haven't worked much in the old houses, let me give you some information here. Don't even think about going through those stones. Those are probably granite pieces, blocks, or whatever. And your hammer, your electric hammer, or your core bit, you're probably going to take the teeth off it. You're not going through it. You got to pick your way through where there's a joint or a seam or something. Okay? If anybody here has a tool that can go through granite, I absolutely would like to hear from you in class. I never saw it. Okay, but regular cement, which is what we normally talk about, inside face, about 10 inches to here, and we go out 10 feet from the inside face. So it's really about 9 feet out. And this house sewer, I guess that's what it is out in Illinois. Okay, let's move on. Let's see. That was question number 4, was the house sewer. Question number 5. When locating fixtures, allowance must be made for the thickness of the finished walls and floor materials. Okay, let's go back to page 311. Take a peek. Okay, I came up with column 2, the right side of page 311, and right in the middle of the page it says allowing for the finished wall material and ceramic tile. They don't say floor material, but I think that's what they mean, is the floor material. Okay. Now let's let me see what we got for time. 140. Yeah, we got a little time. So let's cover this here a little better. Now, again, this is more for you guys that are fairly new in the trade, especially if you get working for a commercial company and you're doing the same thing all the time, very repetitive. I don't know, I guess everybody's got their own theory. You can learn a lot working for a guy who does a lot of remodeling and repairs, because you'll see plumbing from all different eras, from the lead cast iron from the 1800s right up until today. Right, so there's all kinds of stuff in between there. A lot of changes, and once you've been around for a while, you can kind of guess how old the plumbing is by what they used and how they did it. All right, it's not really that hard. Where you guys just doing new work, especially a big project, that's all you've seen, right? You haven't seen much of the other stuff. So let's cover that quickly. When you do a floor, when you rough in a floor, obviously, you're not going to be putting your closet flange in on the rough floor. You want to put the closet flange on the finished floor. Now, years ago, especially when we did cast iron, the cast iron itself could break. Now, those of you who haven't seen it, you can tell because the toilet rocks, and you check the bolts, and the bolts are fine. They're not loose or anything. They don't usually loosen up. It means probably that the flange is broken right where the bolts come through. That's the weak point. So what you have to do is pull the toilet up and see what you got. Now, they do make these special they actually span that break in the cast iron, and you don't have to take the flange off. Years ago, we'd have to melt the flange off, which was tricky. You have to melt it and pop it off, try not to damage anything, any floor, tile, or linoleum in particular can't handle heat, and put a new flange in, which is a lot of work. Now there's ways you can get around it with these repair. It's like a piece of thin steel that spans that broken piece and clamps on. Also, if it's plastic and they put a new floor down, they got these spacers that build it up. I never used them. I'm not sure if you glue them on, but there are spacers. A lot of neat things out there that weren't around like 40 years ago, that are around now, and they help you save a lot of work. Anyway, getting a little off the subject here. When you put down a water closet and you're roughing in for it, a 12-inch rough is the standard rough measurement. You measure off the studs because there's no sheetrock up yet. You measure off the studs and allow a half inch for the wall, right? And depending on what's going on the wall, might be some tile, who knows what. Rough in about 13 inches, no more than that. I used to do about 12 and 3/4. I just didn't like 13. But 12 3/4 is fine. You won't have any problem with it. Now, if they're putting some unusually thick tile on the wall, which is very unusual, most tile is not over a 1/4 inch thick, usually an 1/8 inch. You got to allow for that. But somebody should tell you if there's going to be something unusual, you should be notified in advance, because you haven't seen the contract for the tile. Okay, so you just rough it in and make sure that you got your distance from where the vanity is going to be. Now, remember, if you're working on a 1/4 inch scale print, which most prints are, nearly all your prints are 1/4 inch, unless you're working on a print for a very big building. And now this print is going to be maybe 1/8 inch scale because they can put more building on a print. The trade-off is that the detail is a lot less. Okay. And sometimes the detail for like a kitchen might be 1 inch to the foot, which is a big blow up like for the cabinets. But our print's usually a 1/4 inch to the foot. That's not much. And if you're looking for just 3 inches, what is that? 3 inches is what? 1/4 of a foot? So that would be 1/4 of a 1/4 inch. That's a 1/16 of an inch. That's like the adult pencil mark, right? If you're off 3 inches on the toilet, right? You're 3 inches less on one side and 3 inches more on the other. Very obvious. It looks awful. Okay, so be very careful when you put a toilet in. Or if the owner buys the house and decides the vanity that was on the print, right, custom house now, went from being a spec house where it was being built to sell fast. Now suddenly somebody buys it before you even finish, and they decide that that vanity isn't big enough. This is how it always works. It never goes ever goes the other way. It always goes bigger. It might have been a single bowl sink, it might have been a double bowl sink, but the vanity now is longer by 6 inches. They always go 6 inch increments. So instead of we'll say a 60-inch vanity, it's a 66, right? A 48 to a 54, something like that. You got 6 inches less where the toilet is. You better catch that, because once they put that vanity in, right, they don't care where the hell the toilet is, unless you got a carpenter that's got his stuff together. He's really sharp. They're going to miss that. And you're going to have a vanity, and instead of having 18 inches on each side, or maybe say 20 because you had plenty of room, now what are you down to now? What, 16 to the center? That's anything less than 15 is illegal, I'll tell you right now. Okay, it can look bad. You got 24 on one side and 15 on the other, but the plumbing inspector, he doesn't care. She doesn't care. As long as you got 15, you meet code, you're good. But if somebody puts in a vanity that's too big and you're already roughed in, how are you going to change that? Especially once the tile is down. The tile is already down. Good luck, right? So you got to pick up on that stuff, and let it be known that this toilet, you see the new owner, you meet them, and they want to make some changes. Better sink, better faucets. This is how it always works. Better sink, better faucets, this, that, and the other, and you make note of it, what it is you're changing, right? And I didn't mention this in business, but this is a good time. Okay, so you're going to be adding things up that are considerably more money than what you were going to put in for the spec house contract that you had. Like I always put in good stuff, but it was everyday stuff. White fixtures, which were the least amount of money, but they're the easiest one to match colors and things up with. Not that we're designers, but white goes with anything. Also, different brands can match up, where different brands have different colors of blue and red and all the rest. So the new people start substituting things for what you had. That's a change order, right? And you make a notation of that, and you write down all the changes. And before you even do them, give them the bill. Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to put this in, no extra labor, as long as there's no extra labor. A vanity to a wall hung, not a wall hung, a pedestal sink, don't be a fool. Pedestal sink is easily triple the time, so you'd have to allow for that. Show them, here it is. Here's the paperwork. It's going to cost this much more money for what you want. Are you okay with that? Are we good here? And if they don't like it, well, let's talk. You want this? Okay, I got an idea. I know something that's very close to this, less money, and you can work it out. Because if you say, yeah, okay, you check it all off, and then you whack them with a bill for an extra $2,000-3,000. This happened to my father. The guy was very dramatic. He owned a florist shop, and he did one like he's on stage. He goes, "Oh my God, I never thought." And I think this guy's good. I don't recall my father saying anything, and I think I might have walked away. And I don't know that my father didn't get paid. He was an old customer, and this might have been his routine. A little shtick he goes through with everybody that gives him a bill, no matter how big. But I never forgot that. So before you dig in, let them know how much it's going to cost, and that's called a change order, right? Another thing, you sign it, they sign it, right? You give them a copy, you keep one. If there's a dispute 3-4 months from now, here you go. Here's your signature in a nice way, diplomatic way, right? And if it ends up going to court, you got some paper to cover you. Okay? That happened to me once. Although I didn't have paperwork on it. It was just a 5-year water heater to a 10-year. It was $100 difference. And I had to take the guy to small claims court, and I got the money. But I got better things to do than waste a half a day going to Bedford to court. But I did get my money. Okay, and the other thing is called an extra. Some of you guys are probably familiar with this, especially you guys that do big work. Your boss likes to get, what they do is they get the price. They come in like kind of low, and hopefully the changes in the job will result in things, not only what you're putting in, but over and above, right? Extras mean you're doing all of what you plan to do. In addition, you're going to do this other work. Where a change order means just substituting one thing for something else. Okay, so extras, same deal. People start, and this is where you're going to have a problem because I've seen this. People start making changes, and if they don't see the numbers, it's like a kid like an 18-year-old with a credit card or a 17 or whatever. If it's like make believe until the bill comes due. Let them know before you do it what this is going to cost. As soon as you can figure out the price of whatever extras they want, right? They want to put in a new bathroom in the basement. Also, I wouldn't do any sneaky stuff, which is I've been asked to do. Once the inspector leaves, I want to do this. Like a kitchen sink in the basement. Obviously, it's going to be an apartment. No, don't get caught up in that stuff. But even if it's legitimate work, let them know what it's going to cost before you do it. Save some arguments later on. You might save them from an expense, because most people, believe it or not, most people are honest. I would say well over 90% of the people I dealt with were good people. They just want you to do a good job, fair price. Thank you very much. See you later. But there's always a small percent that are just no good. And here's another thing. People that are no good are very good at it, right? They know all the tricks to give you a hard time. You're good at your job, not dealing with lowlifes. Okay, so be careful. And also, if I didn't tell you that this year, I'll tell you now. If your business antenna is kind of tells you there's something wrong, you're probably right. Okay, you're probably right. I remember a few times it happened with me. It's absolutely true. Last story. I got to shut this one down. But if you have a established contract, a building contract, call you. You're just a small shop. This happened to me. I don't want to mention his name. He might still be alive, but I don't think so. This was probably 35 years ago. It was a while ago. He was probably, no, I don't think he's alive. He'd be 20 years older than me. An older guy, like 60, 65 years old. And he called me out of the blue. And at the time I could have used the work. I said, yeah. And he was the nicest guy, really friendly, low key, never used to swear or get mad, very accommodating. Just lull you. If you meet somebody like that, be careful. Why is he calling you? There's tons of guys he could be calling. And a guy that's been around easily 20 or 30 years, why is he calling somebody pretty much out of the phone book? There's a reason, because he screwed with so many other people, right? Well, I didn't want to think about that. So I did the job. And then I learned the hard way when I gave him the bill for the rough. Yeah. And he just blew me off. So I didn't do any more work on the job. I didn't want to be a fool. And I kept bringing the check to the bank. Now, I don't know if it's still the same way, but he gave me a check. I took it to the bank. I didn't mail it to the bank because I think you get 2 shots and then they keep the check. I was told, always keep the check, bring it to the bank, see if they can cash it. So I did that like maybe 10 times. And this bank was over near where the Harbor Mall used to be. There, got the new mall over there. That bank was there then. And I brought it in one day, and she said, yeah, the check is good. What kind of bills would you take? I couldn't believe it. It's like, I'll take anything you got. And the lady laughed because she recognized me. I got my money. So now what do? Do you go back to that job? The only leverage you have is the fact that the job is frozen until you go back, unless he gets another plumber. Then he's got to go through the trouble of having another inspection. And the plumber, who would have to be a lowlife because you're being held up for money, and stupid, because why would anybody take that job? So what I did, there was a local plumber, and he's since passed away in Little Compton. It was working down the street. This is over in Portsmouth. So I called this guy, Paul Borges, Boddington Plumbing, and we knew each other pretty well. We were friendly competitors. And Paul was like a bull in a china shop. He was a rough guy, tough guy, nice guy. I liked him. Anyway, I told Paul exactly what I told you in a little more detail. And I said, I have a feeling that once he realizes I'm not coming back, because now it was my turn. I was jerking him around. Yeah, I'll be there. I said, he's going to realize I'm not coming back, and he might come and see you. He did. So this guy, Paul, knew all the background on the job. And what he did is he knew how much I had left for the job. So what Paul did is he got all of that money up front and then some and a little extra. And he did the job. Okay. So this one is the last 140. Yeah, we still got a couple minutes. Um, Again, I don't remember if I mentioned this story this year or not. Once you get your license and you get a call to come and take over a job from somebody, there's a few things you have to do. One, just to stay legal, is you have to contact the inspector and tell him that you're taking over a job. And this used to happen to me as an inspector a number of times for building, electric, because I did all the trades in Little Compton. And I'd go out to the job and I would make very, very clear note what I'm looking at, where this guy is taking over. In other words, also what the other guy is leaving. And not always, but usually it's going to be three guesses. Yeah, money is the problem, not getting paid. Once in a while, somebody will call, and here's the thing, you got to call the inspector, get a new permit to finish the job. Now, this part you don't have to do, but if you're smart, you will. Call the old plumber. His name will be on the permit. I got a call from so-and-so, wants me to do the job. Is his money good? Or what's the deal? I don't want to go in here if there's a problem, especially if he owes you money or something like that. And I remember, I don't think this happened to me because I don't think I've ever had, personally, I went in on a job. I inspected a number of them, but I don't think I went in on one. Just never had the opportunity. The guy might say, yeah, his money's good. I just so booked up, I can't get back there. But his money's good. Don't worry about him. I won't worry about taking. Okay, thanks. I'm gonna get a permit. Fine, no problem. But let's say you don't call the guy. You pull a permit, do the job. Now, what did you just do? You just cut out his financial legs, the guy that did the first part, because the only leverage he had was the fact that the job was on hold. Now, when I was an inspector, I remember some of the guys that were getting screwed out of money were old friends of mine. They were like friendly competitors, like that guy Paul, electricians and carpenters, guys you see out in the trade, or guys that I knew when I was in the trade, and also I got to know them even better once I was an inspector. And I believed them. They were just getting, somebody was taking them for a ride, and I could not prevent somebody from coming in to pull a permit, even if there was a lot of money involved. And the state warned me about it because I called the state and they told me don't get involved in a contractual relationship. I never forgot the phrase. They were right. None of my business. I'm not their father. Even if I was, they're adults. You got to chase your own money. But I know I'm getting all carried away with my stories here, but if you are offered to come in on a job, even if it looks like a very profitable job that's already been started and clearly somebody left, you absolutely have to call the guy that left to find out what's up. Not legally, but smart business, because you might take the job, right? And what's going to happen is you all use older guys have been around now. It's a smaller trade than you think. Everybody knows everybody. And all the gossip in the supply houses, it hasn't changed since my father's time. And you're going to be known as the lowlife that cut out somebody's legs to take over a job. Okay, so don't do that. And you might not get paid yourself. Why do you think you didn't pay the other guy? Usually got nothing to do with the quality of the work. I mean, when I was an inspector, there was some jobs that weren't good. I don't think I ever saw a job that was actually an F. I've seen some like Ds. I could rate them a D. But and usually, if the job was that bad, the workmanship was that poor, there were violations of the code. I never told anybody to their face that work was awful. That's hard to do, at least for me. But I would nail them on stuff that was clearly like too much pitch, just illegal stuff. So anyway, a couple of business tips there. I suggest you make note of. And that one there is, those last couple were mainly when you're in business, because when you're working under the table, moonlighting, whatever you want to call it, what you don't have is a lot of paperwork, because change orders, extras, that permit with the plumbing inspector doesn't exist because you can't do that. You can't take that job over. All that stuff doesn't amount to anything because you're gambling on the goodwill or the decency of the person you're working for to pay you, because they don't have to pay you. Legally, they don't have to pay you. Okay, I think we're just about out of time, and I will see you. I'll see you in class. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. I didn't shut this off yet. One last question. Actually, the last couple of questions. I'll go over them fast. I don't want this thing to run on too long. Holes for water supply pipes are made near the edge of the wall plates and studs to reduce likelihood the pipe will be punctured by nails that secure the finished wall material. Okay, what they're saying there is that you drill the holes. It's on page 311. You drill the holes towards the back of the studs. Okay, problem with that. One, the nails might be long enough. I know I've got a nail gun. My nails are 2 and something inches long, and that trim board is pretty about half inch, then a half inch of sheetrock. You know, you're looking at another inch and a half. That's pretty far into that stud. So you'd have to go pretty far back. Now, here's the problem. First of all, none of your water pipes should be in an exterior wall. I don't care if the contractor or the owner says that's okay. And I told one of my clients, I don't know if it's tier 1 or 2, I had a guy who he wasn't a close friend, but he was more than just a casual acquaintance. He was a builder, and I liked the guy, and he built a lot of high-end houses out towards Newport, Portsmouth, Southern Tiverton, and it was his own house. I was doing the plumbing in 1980. Very cold winter that year, and I needed to put pipes in the outside wall. I didn't want to do it. He says, "Don't worry about it. I'll be responsible." Well, I put the pipes where he said, right up against the sheetrock, right, and they still froze. And I guess his wife went crazy, and it was George who? He didn't know me, so I took a lot of heat from her. Learned a lesson. Never put plumbing water pipes in the outside wall ever. Okay. Now, if you work for somebody and the boss tells you to put it in the outside wall, that's where you put it. But once it's your job and you own the job, don't do that. And if you put heat pipes in the outside wall, even if it's PEX that can expand and take a little bit of expansion, you better put antifreeze in that system. Okay, outside walls is no future at all for water pipe of any kind. Okay, also nailing plates. I don't think they mentioned nailing plates here, but if you've ever seen them, they're about 1.5 by 3.5. Looks like about the profile of a 2x4, and they had little tabs that would put over the pipe. And I talked to a sheetrocker one time, and he said what he does. This is just one guy. He makes a note of where all the nailing plates are. In other words, wherever you go through a stud, like in the middle, or even towards the front, so your pipes don't get hit with a nail. And it's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to some of you or your bosses for sure. Put the nailing plate. He says, what I do is make note where all the nailing plates are, and I stay away from there, but I pull the plates off because the wall won't sit quite flat. This is what he claimed. I guess he was a fussy guy, and he'd pop all the plates off, and I guess keep them or throw them out. Only one I ever told me that. But put the nailing plates on wherever you got pipes passing through where they might be shooting, putting sheetrock screws, or the worst thing is the mop board, that trim that goes down right at the floor, or even at the ceiling if they put crown molding, right? Be careful, especially if they're shooting nails. You definitely got to use those nailing plates. Okay, blocking installed between studs. It's to attach pipe. Okay, this is very basic. This is like plumbing first week 101. Okay, we all do that. Real quick, use like the bigger, the better. A 2x10 is perfect, but nothing less than maybe a 2x6. This would be in back of a pedestal sink, right? To hang the sink. Remember now, for those of you who haven't done a pedestal sink is a wall-hung sink with a foot, with a leg. You should be able to slide that leg out and slide it back in again with not even a sheet of paper. So it's got to be very, very exact when you put it in there. It's got a hanger and it's got a leg. Okay? Very time consuming to do. And that hanger needs a lot of support. That support being a 2x6 or bigger. The bigger, the better, because it can't twist. All right? But if there's nothing there, all you got is a stud every 16 inches. That doesn't work so good. Question number 8. Okay, the 3 types of bits: spade, auger, and hole saw. All right, enough said about that. You all know about your drill bits. And DWV piping is installed before the water piping. Okay, it's a no-brainer. First house you ever done or commercial building, you know you do the drainage first. The drainage, water pipe, we can move it all around. Drainage, not so much. Okay, so the answer there is true. The drainage piping goes in before the water supply. Okay, that's it. This time we're really going. Okay, see you in class.